Selamat tengah hari, a very good afternoon to all. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I hope everyone is well and getting recharged after lunch. Okay, for those who are here, thank you for joining us for this afternoon sessions. So we meet again. My name is Fazli Aziz from the Faculty of Business and Economics, Universiti Malaya. I am pleased to be your MC for the rest of the session this afternoon. So the next session is our last keynote session. So without further ado, I would like to invite Dr. Iskandar Abdul, Director, Graduate Employability and Career Center, to introduce our last keynote speaker. Please welcome.
Tak apa. Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and a very good afternoon everyone. Apa khabar? Baik? Makanan okay? Kenyang? Alright, so I hope the food is good and I hope the environment is also sejuk, not too hot. Hopefully petang ni kita akan hujan lagi dengan lebih lebat lagi. So without furthering the time, this is our last keynote speaker and this is my honor for me to present our last and but not least our keynote speaker. So his name is yang berusaha Mr. Thomas Matthew. He's the Group Chief Executive Officer from Talent Corporation Malaysia Berhad, as you all know, which is called Talent Corp as well. And Mr. Thomas brings with him more than 30 years of experience in corporate management, business strategy and risk management. So he began his career as a banker, holding management positions in the corporate and commercial banking divisions of several local commercial banks, from where he joined Pengurusan Dana Harta, National Berhad Dana Harta Malaysia's asset management company in 1998. He was initially involved in loan restructuring and thereafter headed its risk management unit prior to its successful closure in 2005. So Thomas then joined the MBF Holdings group of companies, initially as its Chief Operating Officer, and thereafter as its President. Thomas then assumed the role of Group Finance Director at Ben Holdings Group in Sri Lanka, an established retail, media and theatre group, where he oversaw all aspects of finance, treasury, legal, human resource, risk management, audit and IT. Thomas also holds a Bachelor of Science in Agribusiness from Universiti Putra Malaysia. And his talk today that we'll be delivering is Driving Malaysia's Talent Strategy. Please welcome Mr. Thomas Matthew.
Yes, all right, thank you. Oh yeah, that's right, yeah, okay. Hello everyone. I heard a very subdued response just now when they asked whether you guys were okay. My whole work history has been shared with all of you, but not my life history. Okay, so I was actually born in Negri, and I grew up there. My dad used to be in the estate, so I went to 7 schools. I tell my officers in Talent Corp that I had 7 schools throughout my student career. And one thing I loved was animals. So I used to have, my dad being in plantation, I used to have chicken running around the house, ducks, angsa, you name it, goat, cow, anything. We once also had a pangolin. I don't know what you know what a pangolin is. A pangolin is actually an anteater. My dad knocked it along the road and he brought it back home. So for a little while, that was our pet. So just to see whether all of you are awake, and this is MU, a very prestigious university. All right, I'm going to ask you all a question. And since all of you are very fond of nibbling on your phone, okay, I'm going to give you half a minute to find the answer to this. Okay, what is the oldest animal in the world today? Okay. You shouldn't take very long, isn't it? What is the oldest animal in the world today? Any guesses? Just throw out some things. You can't be quiet, you are in MU. Crocodile, one was crocodile. Sorry? Cockroach, okay. Thought I said animal, never mind. Sorry? Turtles, okay. That's close. Tortoise, okay. Anybody else? Horseshoe crab, okay, that's interesting. Very interesting, okay, horseshoe crab, I'll keep that in mind. Okay, I think time, anybody else? Taylor's, what is that? Taylor's group? Human, okay, all right. Okay, can I come to an end with that? You don't expect me to ask a serious question. The answer is zebra. And why is it zebra? Because it's still in black and white, all other animals are in color. Okay, so that's a different perspective about how to look at things. Okay, I think you heard about my work career. I've been with a corporate and I joined Talent Corp, so that's quite new to me. So I presume that's why my ComSet has put a different perspective there. But what I would like to start off with is actually looking at the talent landscape for the country from the 70s, okay? I'm looking at the 4 E's here. The first E relates to expansion. This is a broad brush of the talent landscape in the country, okay? Expansion means how the country has grown in terms of higher learning institutions and students. The second E is equity. Why equity? From a gender perspective, as well as from a social strata perspective. Third is excellence, okay? Where do our institutions rank? How are they? And fourth is employment, okay? Now let's run through the first one. In the 70s, there were 12 higher learning institutions. It has grown to 595 today. We had total enrollment of close to 14,000 plus. Today we stand at 1.2 million students. GDP-wise, we were 3.86 billion. We're close to 10-fold increase today. Of course, in the 70s, our population was about 10 million. Today, we are running between 33 to 34. So that's what we have. Good. We have many more higher learning institutions. The second E, with respect to equity, literacy rate in adults was at that point in time close to 40%. Today, much higher, 95.7%. In terms of gender equity, at that point in time, we had male 70%, female 30%. Today, it's a little other way around, 60% females and 40% male. Excellence in terms of ranking, okay? These are our universities, the best of our universities. And I think they've been ranked from the left right down based on Times Higher Education ranking. I suppose the challenge that we have in this country with respect to universities is not so much even at university level, it's more at the school level. We are good at developing well-informed minds with respect to our children. The question is whether we are developing well-formed minds. And the reason I say this is because, I mean, we all know the statistics. Just talking to Prof. Rohana just now, with respect to our students leaving SPM. A lot of students do not want to take SPM, or either they want to drop out after taking SPM. I met up with PSDC recently, together with some of the industry players there. And they were coming up with a program called TSL, or Technical Skills Learning Program. They did a pilot project with schools, and what they actually target for is non-academically inclined students, students that don't do well academically. All right? And they spend 2 hours with them every week, teaching them about mechatronics, just basic, E&E, machining, computer. And you can see the excitement on the faces of these kids when they are putting together electrical circuit board, getting something lit. They find it very, very interesting. And surprisingly, the turnout for that class is very, very high. Very, very high. And these are non-academically inclined students. So the tendency for us these days is to see whether academically our kids are doing well. The question is, what's more important? Is it a well-informed mind or a well-formed mind? Employment. Ultimately, the issue is with employment, isn't it? So if you look at Malaysia youth unemployment rate for 2021 was 15.6%. Now, these are the challenges. I think Dr. Uzair has shared with you yesterday with respect to the figures. All right, and this is a narrative that Talent Corp has been putting out to industry, to the government itself, to every ministry that I attend together with Nazrul, Megat, Afiq, and the team here. We always speak about these challenges. Why? Because we have to deal with the problems that's before us. Sometimes it's not as rosy as it seems. So the first challenge, if you look at the left quadrant, is the creation of high-skilled jobs. I won't run through it in detail, but suffice to say we have 5.6 million of diploma and graduate holders, while skilled jobs are only at about 2.1 million, and that hasn't grown very much. So the challenge here is we need to bring investment into the country. And I think even Dr. Uzair, I think in one of his transformation proposals, he spoke about creating complex skilled jobs. And that's what the government is trying to do, bring in higher investment to create skilled jobs in the country. And that's far and few. Okay, that's something that is worrying. So anything to ease the process of doing business is welcome. So recently, of course, there was Expats Gateway was formed to help investors when they want to bring in expatriate through a quick process, and Talent Corp was very much a part of that. The second challenge is underemployment, and that's rising. As you can see, the gap is rising. 2021 was about 1.9 million. 2022 is at 2.01. So essentially, it sort of supports what we hear when we hear about the numbers of median salary for youth between 20 to 24 at 1,682, just above the minimum income level. And what is even more worrying is that the median age in the country is 2,600, I understand, and that's only 20 ringgit more than the poverty threshold of 2,580. Okay, so basically it tells you that what we produce vis-a-vis what is demanded. The challenge is twofold. One is we don't have enough skilled jobs. The other is maybe we're not matching with what the industry wants as well. So you speak to any sector, they say, you say that there's a lot of graduates out there, but how come we don't have enough engineers? Or how come we don't have enough of this? Or how come we don't have enough of that? Then the question is whether industry matches with what university is supplying. That's a question. Huh? The third is industry-ready talent, and that's where, like I said, the worry is if you break down the unemployment, and we say it's 3.5%, we seem to be happy with that large, big number which has reduced over the years. But if you take it down granular, and you look at a population of young youth, that is worrying. Because a lot of them to get their first job is difficult. And lastly is female workforce retention, which we in Talent Corp call an internal brain drain. So when you have 60% of female students in universities, why are they not being converted into the workforce? And they have their own challenges, all right? So this is a very interesting question. Malaysia has the talents that can meet investor needs. Can you take a guess what the median age in the country is? What is our median age in this country? Okay, it's not the zebra joke, but it is 30 years. So we have a very young population. So half of our population is 30 years and below, half is 30 years and above. And half of the 30 years and below is 15 years and below. So we have actually an ideal population for any investor to come in, all right, to capitalize, to tap on this youth for the progress of the country. And the challenge we all know about youth is this, that if you don't give them a vision, you don't give them a career path, what you think is a demographic advantage can turn into a demographic disaster. All right, so we can harness the best of our youth because we have a young population. And if you compare that to countries below and above us, Singapore is 42. Thailand is hitting close to 40, and we are at 30. Of course, you look at Japan, it's 48, and they're asking for our workforce to come and help them there. All right, so we have the right population mix. The only question is, are we taking advantage of that position to drive what we need to do? Okay, I'm not going to talk so much about this, but I think all of us know these are all things that you can read. Goldman Sachs report saying 300 million jobs will be affected, and then World Economic Forum talking about AI and how it can create jobs, how can it also disrupt jobs. So the challenge is, one, while we're at the same time trying to put our structure into place, we also need to worry about the future because AI will change a lot of things. But I don't think we need to fear. I think the intention is to understand where our problems lies, work on that, and then, like I said, work collectively to prepare the youth for the workforce of the future. And of course, automation creates innovation leading to new types of jobs. So something that we do in Talent Corp is work with the industry, and I'll talk more about that later. So Puan Mahuran was here yesterday, and she would have maybe shared with all of you the COL for 2021, what it showed. 86% of new jobs are primarily in the digital space. The COL is an exercise that we do to identify the gap, the demand in the workforce within the key sectors that contribute to the growth of the country. So we do a survey literally every year, and we try and find out where the demand is. So 86% of the last COL done showed them to be in digital jobs. And digital jobs, like I said, AI, learning, animation, gaming, cybersecurity, these are the kind of jobs that are out there in demand. The question is, does a girl at 15 years old, before they decided to take arts or the science stream, do they know where the demand is? Do the teachers know that these kind of jobs are available and they are in demand? Or are they still conventionally thinking about the old professions, which is engineering, maybe law, maybe medicine, okay, which are what our kids are primarily inclined to do. This is saying, okay, you can't expect a different outcome if we keep doing the same things over and over again. And this is also something that I shared with the group as a whole, because we in Talent Corp do a lot of programs. But if ultimately the result is the same thing and our gap is only widening, then the question is, maybe it's time we did something differently. Because if we do the same thing, the outcome is not going to change. Okay, I'm not sure whether many of you know about this gentleman. He was Luis Fortuno, governor of Puerto Rico between 2009 and 2013. Puerto Rico is a territory within the US. And the reason I'm showing this is because this is something I shared with my talent group staff as well. When he took over as governor, he came from the corporate side. When he took over as governor, Puerto Rico had about $3 billion in deficit. And he inherited a territory that was in humongous debt, no income. 1 out of 3, the workforce in that territory was attached to the government. There was not even enough money to pay them. And then contracts inflated in cost. The view taken by the earlier government prior to him coming in was that it's not their money, so what's the big deal? If I need to inflate costs and pay somebody and I get something, so what's the big deal? Now, you would have expected him, in a situation where revenue is dropping, the first likely solution would have been raise taxes, correct? And that's what normally an economist will tell you. What did he do differently? He actually reduced corporate tax. He laid off, he froze salaries, and he started privatizing. All of this were met with humongous rebellion from the population because naturally they were very unhappy. A lot of them were laid off. Taxes was reduced, no revenue was coming in. But what did it do? The impact it created was that reduced taxes actually incentivized a lot of large corporates there to actually increase their investment in the country. Coca-Cola opened up a bottling plant, Walmart opened up more stores, and many bigger concerns started opening up bigger and bigger concerns, which again created more job opportunities for the local. And those that actually were laid off became entrepreneurs as well. So later down the road, they're very grateful to Luis Fortuno for doing that changes. Okay, and his deficit reduced by 2 billion. Okay, Talent Corp, where do we come in? Again, I think Dr. Uze shared about the fact that he wanted a market of skilled, complex, skilled people. We need more of that within the country. And of course, our aspiration is also to provide that. I mean, imagine Malaysia being a market-driven talent hub, which is always our aspiration to be. But like I said, we are not there yet, and we need to do things differently. So a little bit about Talent Corp for those of you who do not know who we are. Set up in 2011 by the government then. It was part of the transformation policy, of which talent was a key pillar. And the government at that point in time decided that they needed an agency to focus on talent. And we work with government and academia, and this is precisely what we're doing here today. So we set up then, at 2019, we ended up with the Human Resource Ministry. So we sit under the Human Resource Ministry today. What is our target group? Until 2021, school students were not part of our target group, but we realized we do critical occupation list. We know what the jobs in demand are, but it's a bit too late at that point in time to go to universities and tell them this is where the demand is, because students have already decided on the career. So we said we need to go to schools, and in 2021 we did exactly that. Last year, the Ministry of Education was pleased with the work that was done. They gave us approval to go to all other states, and we had an event in Kedah. And we owe that to our children to tell them where the demand is. And before they move into arts or science, which is peculiar to our education system, a student from arts, once he's taken arts, he can never go back to science. For science students, of course, they can go back to arts. And at that point in time, their career is to a large extent determined. So intervening at that point in time to tell them about the jobs out there in a language that they understand, okay, working with counselors, working with teachers, working also with parents to explain to them that forget about the conventional thinking about only these courses are the courses that are available or you should choose, but there are other new jobs that's coming into the market. I think it's very important. So we try and do this. So of course, we are in other spaces as well. On the local side, university students, fresh graduates, professionals, women, and senior hires. Talking to Professor Rohana just now, and she said she has a lot more to offer. Maybe a lot of us in the 60s also have a lot more to offer to the younger generation. So that's something that we're also working on. On the global side, diaspora, and also the expatriate space. Okay, how do we drive everything that we do? Ultimately, it must be driven by data. It must be evidence-based. MyNext is a platform that we have. Psychometric profiling forms part of that platform. Number of IPTAs are on board, and we also have some IPTS. Why is that important for the country? We needed a platform to actually centralize our database of supply. We don't have that as a country, or centralized. MOHE will have the numbers. We have TVETs as well, running across 12 ministries. The idea to centralize, why is that important? Because when an investor comes in and he wants to know where his talent pipeline is, we need to have that information for him. Okay? Having a centralized supply database is key. So we're using MyNext as a platform for that. It also incorporates a psychometric profile, as I said, and something Dr. Uze said yesterday as well with respect to the talent space is the soft skill challenge that we have. Okay, and this psychometric profiling identifies the strengths and weaknesses of students of any talent, and then you can take the necessary action to address that gap. We also do internship through this platform. Very important. Why? Because a company in Penang can source for an intern down south, and an intern down south can look for an opportunity of internship in the east. So interns get to know about companies. We also realized through our engagement that a lot of students do not know who their potential employers are. If you're taking a course in a particular subject, who could your potential employers be? What are they looking for? Okay, those are things that, like I said, through this platform, we try and educate through the advertisements carried out by the company, etc., for the students to then get to know them. COL, I won't talk more about this because I think Mahoran has shared with you a very important exercise that we do in determining where the demand is. MyNSR, okay, is a mandate given to us by EPU to determine the competency, skill sets, or profession. In simplistic form, I always share this, and that's what we do with people that we meet. What is MyNSR all about? If you look at an IT manager in Malaysia and an IT manager in India, you'll find that the skill sets, expectations of them are totally vastly different. We need to benchmark ourselves internationally. That's one. And also for any youth, any professional who wants to build his career and to go into different levels of a profession, he needs to know what are the skill sets required, both soft as well as hard. And this platform is meant to tell you that. MyHeart is a platform that we just introduced mid this year for the diaspora. Another challenge that we have here is that we don't have a database of diaspora. Okay, I will talk more about that later, but we have close to 1.8 to 1.9 million Malaysians abroad. We don't have the data. Immigration doesn't capture it. Nobody captures it. Our commissions abroad may ask for it, but Malaysians are not compelled to give it. So if we don't have the data, how do we work with our Malaysians abroad to actually contribute back? And a lot of them want to do that. MyExpats is a platform that we have that engages with expatriates. Employment passes are approved through this platform. So these are all, like I said, dealing with the talent base. So using this data that's derived from these platforms is how we drive what we do. The first thrust that we have is optimizing Malaysian talent. So as I mentioned earlier, these are all the talents within the country that we work on. And ultimately, this is a sustainable pool of talents, not the expatriates, not the diaspora, okay, but the talents within the country. And that is why it is varying only because if you look at IPTA, what we've been told is that 70% of students in IPTA are from B40 families. So if these B40 families who have hopes on their children to take them out of that poverty, okay, finally ends up with jobs that is only giving them 1,600, 1,700, when will they ever come out? So I think as a nation, we need to collectively do a nation building exercise, work together, like I said, to address a lot of these issues. We have a lot of programs. MySIP is one of them. Internship is very important to us, only because a lot of industries talk about readiness of our students when they come into the workforce. So giving them that internship opportunity is paramount. And then we have a semester break program is going on now, as I understand it. IAC will talk about later. And then we have women programs. Again, like I said, women is key to what we do. In Penang, last year, we actually worked with Micron to set up the first industry-driven childcare center. Why is that important? I think if you ask every woman here, their mind half the time, or a parent, half the time they're thinking about the children back home. And a lot of them leave the workforce only because to take care of children or aged parents. So we can't do much about the aged parents yet, but for the children, we would like to work with industries to set up childcare centers. It's a given thing. If you have 60% of participation in university females, and you can't convert them into the workforce, then there's something wrong. Forget about talking about brain drain externally. Internal brain drain is also just as important. And Malaysia ranks among the worst in the ASEAN countries when it comes to women participation in the labor force. The diaspora, as I mentioned, MyHeart is a key platform that we're working on. A lot of Malaysians want to contribute. And a lot of them want to return if the opportunities were available here. All right, so that is why we created the platform to enable them to have a platform to contribute. Just launched it. Okay, we would love to share that with all of you, to share that with friends of yours, relatives of yours overseas, so that they too can register on the platform. And then on expatriates, certainly, we're doing a lot of work with the expatriates. Nothing worrying from them. I think the government is also looking at foreign students here to actually be able to work here once they finish. And that's, again, something good, because otherwise we end up with Malaysians leaving the country, but nobody to fill up that positions. And using students that have studied here, foreign students that have studied here, to take up those roles is not a worrying thing, because they can be in future our ambassadors as well. So we are pushing for that. So on the diaspora bit, I think a lot of us have heard that in the brain drain, I think that has been a hot topic. Earlier this year, there were a lot of writers who were talking about brain drain, and they love Talent Corp so much so they blame Talent Corp for everybody that leaves Malaysia. But if you look at the data with respect to diaspora, okay, and this is from the World Migration Report, the question that we need to ask ourselves is, we say Malaysia has a high brain drain. The question is, what is deemed as high? You must have a certain benchmark to say that you are high. So in Malaysia's case, it's 1.86 million. In total, worldwide, you have 281 million migrants. And that constitutes 3.6% of the world population. So if you wanted to use a benchmark to say what is high or what is low, then use 3.6 as the yardstick. So in Malaysia's case, we are at 5.6%. So certainly, we are high, right? But where are these Malaysians? 60%, 1.13 million, resides in Singapore. That is 3.3%. So if we take that out, it's 1.8% around the world. And you know the challenge that we have across. Last thrust is building a network of top talents. Dr. Jasmine, who shared earlier, sits on our Intech Advisory Council. Nolida, who was probably here in the first moderating session that Nazrul managed, also forms part of our Intech Council. We have Industry Advisory Council to advise us, because we feel it is industries that are so important. You create jobs. And therefore, understanding what you need is, again, everything that we need to drive what we want to do. We also have Ways, a Women Council that advises on areas that we need to strengthen women engagement and trying and bring them back to the workforce. We have an Expatriate Council to actually advise us on where we could do better based on good practices in their country and how they would also like to contribute to Malaysian students. And we do a lot of work with state investment and state corridors and investment bodies as well. Something interesting that we signed recently was a MOU with India. India had many challenges that we had. Okay, in 2014, under Modi, Modi had a vision for India. And I'm sharing this only because, like I said, there are so many good models around our region. Sometimes we just need to look at what they have done and see whether we can try and emulate or replicate that. So Modi had a vision. He wanted to make India the skills capital of the world. That was vision in 2014. So he set up a ministry called the Ministry of Skills Development and Entrepreneurship. So you had all other ministries working on their own talent segments, but he created a new ministry called Ministry of Skills Development and Entrepreneurship. And under that ministry, he set up a company called National Skills Development Corporation. It was already in existence, but he put it under the ministry. NSDC, or National Skills Development Corporations, is 51% owned by private, 49% by the government. Government just puts seed money in, industry drives it. And the federation sits on it. So it's like the MEF, the FMM, the MCR, they sit on NSDC. 10 federations, chambers, owning 5.1% each. And under NSDC, they've created 36 skill council centers. And these skill council centers apply for each sector within the industries. So you have one for farming, you have one for E&E, you have manufacturing, you have finance, etc. On IT, you have the best, and who leads these skill councils is the best within the industry. So in the case of digital, it's a company called NESCOM, And people from Wipro and Infosys, I think you know who Infosys is, Rishi Sunak's father-in-law owns a company, Naranamurthy. The best of them sit on these councils to drive the skill sets required for the industry. So the proof, the ultimately is in the pudding, right? I think India has moved from the 10th largest economy to the 5th largest economy, and very soon they'll be the 3rd largest economy. I mean, these are, like I said, models and challenges that they had. They had issues with underemployment as well. So what we've done is we've signed with them only because we want to knowledge share, get the knowledge sharing from them, and see whether we can also put up similar structured councils where industry drives what we want to do. IAC, something very important. I think we did 10 IACs, Industry Academic Collaboration, last year. We used to do it not so much sector-based prior to 2022. We then decided to go by sector. So the team that you see here, Safrina, Magat, Afiq, Atika, and all of the team, the whole team here, and Nazrul spearheads that. These are collaborative efforts that we do together with industry and the academia to drive what are the challenges within both the industry space as well as the university space to bring them closer together. All right, so if you look at the challenges, networking between both industry and academia is still on the surface. Some may not even know the existence of the other, and that sometimes is the case. I was talking to, was it JTM yesterday at one of our ministerial meetings, and he was telling me in Mua, and Mua, if you know Mua, you know that they have all the furniture manufacturers there. We have a TVET institution. I understand they do bakery. So then the question is, where are we actually fitting what we want to do with what the industries that are around? You know, so like I said, these are structural changes we try and put into place. So understanding what the industry wants, and like I said, understanding what the university's challenges are, putting them together to work on solutions, I think is very important for all of us. And then academia has specific regulations, requirements that they need to adhere to, certainly with respect to MQA. And then we're looking at leveraging on micro-credentials. And then on the council part, every stakeholder has their own needs and demands. They still need to establish an independent council to lead and drive action. And again, the recommendation to that is setting up of a sector talent council like what I spoke about. So in closing, this is what I think we need to do. I think we all know the challenges. I think Dawson's latest numbers is quite revealing. And for those of us as parents, or even non-parents, grandparents, whatever, you know, for the future of the country, I think there are a lot of things that we need to work together to collectively, like I said, put things back into place. A lot of structural changes required. We want to play our role. We want to play our role. We cannot play our role without any of you, the academia and the industry. So we are hoping for more collaborative efforts from all our end to drive what we need to do. So with that said, thank you so very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thomas. Okay, Q&A, please. Okay, so we would like to, for Q&A session, can we? Okay, sure. So for attendees that we have a question, you may go to the microphone provided.
Thank you, MC. My name is Mahadi. Thank you, sir. Thank you for I think this is what people have been waiting for, because I was scared earlier in the morning when people were like starting to put up blame on each other. You know, academia is not doing this, industry is not doing this, but you have shown the data. I think that is very obvious. You know, we are not lacking of talent because a lot of our talents are going away. And I mean, would you agree to say that it's actually the competitiveness of our industries that is the key now? I mean, we've been asked. I mean, I'm from the university. We've been asked to do a lot of changes, and Earlier, I think one of the fellow delegates have said that university have done so much. Even in UM, we have introduced so many things, to get the industry to come on board, inviting them to teach in the classroom, having precision intervention to drive up their soft skills and so on. And we know a lot of our graduates end up in other countries. Why? Because they are saying, the attractiveness of the salary is not there, the market is not ready for them, so they are going away and we're losing talents. And what we end up with, we are importing talent for a low-skill manufacturing-based economy. I think that is the key. And this is where we have to work together so that, everyone, industry, the academia, must start to think of the future workforce that is driven on digitalization technology so that we can drive up the competitiveness. Thank you.
Okay, I presume that was not a question, right? You just wanted to say, agree. Okay, thank you very much.
Do we have any more questions from the floor? I have one, Mr. Matthew. What can we do in terms of trying to retain our talents? Not to say we don't want the brain drain to the nation, right? And how can the university, the higher learning institute, and also the talent corp, and also any other industries, and also the ministry come together in order for us to build up the nation and also to not for our talents to go abroad?
Okay, it's not easy. I mean, when, of course, if we look at, let's take Singapore. You don't have to talk about other countries only because we have our children going abroad, okay, and then like UK, for example, they allow the students to look for opportunities for a good period. So you're resigned to, in a way, losing them. If they come back, fantastic. But let's look at Singapore on its own. I mean, we as a team had discussions about it. What do we do? When you go and see UTM, right? And the VC was saying that, whatever they produce, the best of the students end up across, So what do you do about it? And more so because, why? Because in IPTs, the government subsidizes for the education. Can you, beat that? I mean, here you are putting government money, funding a student all the way, all right into university to produce them. And who do they go to? They go to Singapore and actually contribute there. They're not here. But can you stop it? You can't. You can't only because, like I said, as I mentioned to you, it is so good being there. But Singapore has its own challenges, to be fair. I mean, the cost of living in Singapore is just rising, all right? The only problem is you don't have opportunities here to sort of take advantage of that. We spoke about it. We will, of course, try and talk to the government to see whether we could look at some carrot approaches. We spoke about the stick approach. Do you bond them to the country? But that's being unfair on our children also. You want them to stay voluntarily in the country. Then the question is, can you give them enough carrot in the sense that can we look at for critical jobs, can we look at maybe better tax structures, to sort of incentivize to them to stay? Because once they stay here for the first 5 years, they start a family, the chance of them moving may not be there if you have some structure in place for them to see a benefit of being in a critical sector, as well as, like I said, the advantages of being here. So if you're asking me at this point in time, no, there's nothing we can do. In fact, we used to do programs with JPA and Marafe, same thing, where students on scholarship, ultimately when they come back, the government can't absorb them. So we try and look for corporates to actually take them, absorb them. So as I said, the question of opportunities here is not there. So we need to start from ground zero in a way. So what the government is doing in terms of driving investment into the country is actually the very right way to go. When you have big names in the country, things will change. I keep going back to India, not because I'm an Indian, but the point is, they had the same challenges, and they had an exodus of Indians leaving for the Silicon Valley, you name it, wherever. But today they're coming back. And they come back, they take a pay cut and come back only because, and that's I've been told, only because the country has a vision. Sometimes Malaysians, all they want is a vision for the country. Is there an ambition that you have? Are you headed somewhere? Can I be part of it? Because if you speak to a lot of the diaspora, more than 90% of them want to contribute back to the country. In fact, when we were in Australia, I used to joke with the diaspora there. I said, I'm sure, because all of them, when we call for events, they come, and they love to come to meet fellow Malaysians. I joke with them, I tell them this, I'm sure every morning when you wake up, you're looking for a negative news about Malaysia only to justify why you've moved out from that country to this country. Which is very true, because a lot of them don't want to be there. They would love to be back in Malaysia. The only problem is, do we have the opportunities here? So we need to build that. And I think we're on the right track. We all need to work together, as I mentioned, industry. And then, like I said, let them come on their own free will, look for opportunities here. And like I said, maybe that way we can stem the diaspora brain drain.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Yes, please.
Hi, good afternoon. Mr. Thomas, I really like your sharing just now, and it really catches my attention when you mention about zebra. Because before that, please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Abby, and I'm from Kola team. So Kola team, the name comes from collaborate and team up. So what we do is we are a, I would say, job technology platform that connects talent with employers. So we are coming from private sectors. So the reason why I say that Zebra catches my attention, because we actually focus in Zebra movement. So that means when talent improve or our community improve, our company improves. So this is our main goal. So coming from private sectors, right, could you give us like tips or advice? How can we work more closely with the government sectors, especially like uni or maybe the employers? Yeah, that's my questions. Thank you.
So you are talking from the corporate side, right?
Yes.
Yeah, because like I said, for us, corporate is our driver. I mean, industry is what drives the country. And I think sorry,
Yes.
go on.
So like, let's say from my company, right, we continuously provide trainings for students in terms of digital transformation. We give them like industrial practice, but we are facing these challenges where how can we spread these programs further to our young talent?
Okay, I mean, if what you are doing is what the industry wants, okay, if what you're doing is actually what the industry wants, and the industry endorses what you're doing, then, like I said, once we have that sector talent councils in place, our idea is to have industry leaders determining what the skill sets requirements are, and then you have training providers like yourself working to provide that. Of course, we also have HRD Corp there. You can, I presume you are a registered institution with HRD Corp?
Yes, we are.
Yeah. So again, it is for you to approach HRD Corp, talk to them, get endorsement from corporates that they want this training. And if the sector wants it, I don't see why, like I said, you can't work with HRD Corp on this. But eventually, like I said, what we'd like to do is drive skilling requirements through proper councils in place, especially in the TVET space.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there any more questions to Mr. Thomas? So if not, if you can see in front, let's connect and collaborate and drive the change for Malaysia's future together. With that, please join me to thank Mr. Thomas Matthew.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thomas. I believe a very interesting sharing session from you. And as appreciation for Mr. Thomas Matthew for the sharing session, please accept a memento as an effort of appreciation from Dr. Iskandar. Please welcome. I would like to express my heartfelt thanks for your exceptional speech and representing the perspective of Talent Corp Malaysia. Thank you for sharing your expertise and making the event more memorable. Ladies and gentlemen, before we wrap up this session, it will be kindly appreciate for the attendees to provide some inputs on labor participation and economic well-being and their work-life balance following COVID-19 outbreak. There is a QR code provided by the organizer on the table of attendees. So if you can spend about 1 to 2 minutes to provide some input for the researcher from UKM, and USM in Ilmiah for your kind inputs is much appreciated for them. Okay, thank you very much. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the exciting keynotes and forum that we have lined up in two days conference have been engaging and fruitful. To summarize and wrap up the 2 days conference, onto the stage, please join me in welcoming Yang Berbahagia Professor Dato Dr. Nasruddin Mohamad, Director, Higher Education Leadership Academy, Ministry of Higher Education, to deliver the summary and practical discourse from the 2 days of conference. Please welcome.
Thank you, Mr. MC. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good afternoon to all. Yang berusaha Mr. Thomas Matthew, Group Chief Officer, Talent Corporation Malaysia Berhad, Talent Corp. Ladies and gentlemen, member of the conference, the two-day conference. Alhamdulillah, all praise be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all his blessings and barakah, and we have gathered here together during the final closure of AKEPT Global Series Skills for the Workforce of the Future Conference in the historical and oldest university in the city. This is in fact my alma mater. Actually, I was here in 1983, and nice to be back here, right on this very stage for the convocation ceremony of 1986. Alhamdulillah. We gathered and discussed since yesterday on a very important issue, an issue that shapes the future of our country. Addressing labor market issues is timely as we are facing with a very dynamic and challenging the emerging global issues such as technology progression, climate change, volatile geopolitics, and uncertain socio-economics. I believe that this, what we know as VUCA, volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, which leads to shifting on our lifestyle and work differently. Consistency in approach and practice in instilling culture of learning, improving and building capacities and resilience in meeting the changes, demands, and challenges of the present and the future. Investment and priority in elevating and transforming human capital and talent with the expanded skill sets, knowledge, expertise, experience, and resources across different spectrum in ensuring the sustaining of a knowledge-driven workforce with knowledge exposure, absorption, and application in all work stages and levels of staffing. Long-term strategic initiative in building resilience, adaptability, and future-driven performance system with human capital advancement and equipping the workforce with the right skill and knowledge and empowerment for greater efficiency, outcome, and impact to the development of personal growth, organizational achievement, and in-depth contribution and impact to the world and humanity. Ladies and gentlemen, the flow of the conference was designed brilliantly with the collaboration from Akademi, Kepimpinan, Pendidikan, Tinggi, or AKEPT, Universiti Malaya, and Talent Corp. I have to thank the organizing team for this wonderful work. Such collaboration opens the door for the opportunity for all the speakers and members of the conference to share their thoughts and experience. Not only that, networking among like-minded experts that are concerned and passionate about the future workforce that will shape the future of our beloved country. Throughout the conference, we have listened and discussed on the labor market analytics and statistics, the emerging work or jobs of the future, the roles of human resources managers, managing talents that suits the job market needs, the skills needed to fulfill market demands, and looking into the importance of the role of technical and vocational education and training, or better known as TVET. We have covered a large spectrum of the issue labor market, arguments on the key avenues of futuristic synergy of talent, capital resources and knowledge, and the immediate and long-term impact on regional and global development have been covered. This is critical in identifying the next frontiers of critical field collaboration and spark the growing major changes in the politics of identity, emotion, and resonance of the next level generational perspective, demands, and expectations. The current and future areas of conflicts or potential in this regard and its role in forming a new regional consensus and collaboration can be derived and hypothesized. The future potential and avenues of a holistic, enriching, and encompassing workforce and lifelong learning experience, and its role in expanding the reach and engagement of communities in building trust, understanding, and acceptance across global communities, transcending normal parameters of barriers, are indeed critical. In evaluating the new roles, strategies, and policies in place for future revitalization and the renewal in meeting the new call and expectations of the skills of the future in addressing global challenges and achieving sustainable goals, this conference seeks to lay out an ambitious plan to ensure holistic overview and discourse. Members of the conference, the rising impact of non-traditional threats and return of traditional high-intensity conflicts create setbacks to the sustainability of outward healthcare, revamp, and the democratization of access to affordable and universal healthcare. The systemic degradation of local and regional economies, social development capacities, internal governance and institutional resilience and interventional resources as a result of climate-induced change effects. The speed and depth of knowledge and human capital migration, unrestrained flight and mobility of talents, labor, migrants, refugees, and others brought forth by structural changes, and both sets of threats further exacerbate expansionary healthcare policies and narrow the equity and participatory prospect of inclusive healthcare goals. Current and past adaptive and accommodative structural readiness have failed under the weight of increasing risk factors and other injection of capital and tools that are not executed in tandem with scope and capacity of healthcare demands and needs under changing context and circumstances. New demands and changing economic landscape with different perspectives and needs from the generational divide and return of traditional threats where emphasis and policy making on healthcare are diverted to needs of national interest and survival. The zero-sum game of different and conflicting needs and interests of the different demographic groups divided by perspectives, health status, demands, and needs, as well as cost of healthcare and life sustainability, will compel policymakers to make difficult choices of balancing the priorities or other critical tools of national growth and measure in ensuring the largest segment of population getting the most attention and investment on welfare, in ensuring political survival, and in preventing social unrest and conflict. Digital technology and knowledge-based workforce with multi-channel hybrid model remains critical. Exposure and elevation of competitiveness with world-class peer training, comparison, and exchanges remain vital. All the brilliant and critical insights and viewpoints that have been raised, garnered, and debated throughout this conference remain the stepping stone for future implementations that are based on realistic and futuristic parameters which form the basis of structural and systematic action plan and strategies that will guide future policymakers with strategic and long-term foresight and wisdom. My valued guests, before I end the summing up of the two-day agenda in this legendary hall, the Dewan Tunku Canselor, I would like to thank you, Yang Berbahagia Prof. Datuk Insinyur Dr. Muhammad Hamdi Abdul Syukur, who is, however, could not make it this afternoon due to more pressing matter. The Vice Chancellor of the University of Malaya, my good friend, and his very able team led by Professor Dr. Yong Zulina Zubairi. I would also like to thank the Registrar of Akademi, the AKEPT, also Mr. Thomas Matthew, the Group CEO of Talent Corp, and his team, of course. My team of Center of Leadership Sustainability, or CLS, from AKEPT, headed by none than Mr. Azrul, Encik Azrul Hamzah, and members of the conference from public and private universities, government departments and agencies, and our corporate partners for making this conference a meaningful and beneficial one. On that note, I conclude and officially close the AKEPT Global Series, Skills for the Workforce of the Future. We will see you in our next or future program, inshallah. With that, I thank you. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Yang Berbahagia Professor Dato' for the sharing. Thank you very much once again. Ladies and gentlemen, with the end of this session, I believe we have come to the end of the program. On behalf of the organizer, I would like to express my deep appreciation to the respected speakers, excellent moderators, and participants in this program. My sincere apology for any shortcoming while handling the event. It is indeed my pleasure and honor to be the host for you in this evening. Again, thank you for all your presence, and I wish you all a pleasant evening. We hope to see you next time. Thank you very much. Thank you very much once again. Take care and have a safe trip home. But before that, I would like to invite our distinguished guests, together with all the participants, to have one last time, a group picture together. So, will you please kindly move forward closer to our distinguished guests? So, while the photographer get ready for that, so one more last time for a group photo, please. So. Okay, so everyone, please move closer to our distinguished guests so that our photographer can have everyone inside this big picture together. Okay, everyone, thank you for your cooperation. Okay, ready? Photographer. Okay, smile, everyone. Okay, thank you everyone for your cooperation. Before you leave, we have prepared a light refreshment at the hall foyer. So I would like to invite the distinguished guests, together with all participants, to enjoy the refreshment. But before that, once again, please register your attendance for your certificates and also provide us your valuable feedbacks for the program. Thank you. My name is Fazli Aziz, signing off from AKEPT Global Series Skill for the Workforce of the Future Conference 2023. Thank you and Assalamualaikum.